Welcome to Magical Moments for that ease and betterment in your life. I'm Alena Chapman, your host. Yes, we are supposed to have that ease and betterment in our life. And as you know, folks, I'm all about that inner wisdom, that soul wisdom. And really, that's where it starts. That's where it happens. You know that I talk about all the mystical. Of course I do. Well, not only mystical, I call it divinity. But most of the clients I have, we got to get through the mindset. We've got to get through the toxic relationships, the marriage that might not be doing so hot, the kids that you don't know what in the heck to do with, the job that has toxicity written all over it. These things that we are dealing in our lives, they keep us from opening up to the love that we have inside because we're dealing with stuff that's not agreeing with our inner being, right? Well, do we just say, no, I'm not going to work? No, we have to learn. It all comes from inside us. So that's what I'm saying. When we have that kind of problem, those are the people I work with. Inner wisdom. It's always beckoning you. And you know what? It is allowing and opening to it. And that's why we have to get through all the stuff that's not allowing you to do it. And we all so much get in our own way. But here's something I really want you to hear. It's not your fault. It really isn't. Because the thing is, we don't know what we don't know, right? If we haven't raised our awareness to it, or if somebody hasn't or led us down a wrong road, then how are we supposed to know what the other road contains, right? We beat ourselves up. Stop. You don't know what you don't know. And that's why you tune into this show. But I want to explain why you don't know what you don't know before I open you up to how to get started on knowing what you don't know. The thing is, we were taught to believe outside ourselves, to value others' opinions more than ourselves, that everyone else had the answers and we did not, to value the whole systems of the whole world and have it define who we are, define what we are. And that's why you hear people say, the world has beaten me. My gosh, if you read Think and Grow Rich, it even talks about there's a hidden guide in the world that's fighting you. You know, you got to go through the test to make it. No, it's the law of gestation. You have to grow to become that goal. It is nothing to do with some evil, sinister little thing making you pass a test. It's really funny. You know, my childhood, I was a weird kid. But, I mean, well-liked, loved. But, I mean, at 3 years old, I knew there was something bigger than myself. Nobody had taught me. My mom wasn't big into religion. So it's you know, I'm sitting for nap time and I'm looking out at the willow tree, knowing it holds something very magical. I'm looking up at the sky and saying, God or whoever, you know, I don't know what I called it at that time. Thank you. I want to be with you. That's what I would say at 3. I'd set up my little crib upside down and line up all my little animals and dolls and say and start to talk to them about loving. Who does that at 3 years old? You know, and when I was older, yeah, then my mom got scared because I set up a little shrine in my room to pray and stuff. Oh, my mom just went. She thought I was, I don't know, becoming a nun or something. I don't know. She went nuts and ballistic on it. And then when I come downstairs and say, oh, I've been given a gift, you can see how this all went. And all of a sudden, my parents are getting worried because this is not normal. And then when that wasn't accepted, and I had the priest and everyone, and school was horrible. I had the first grade nun. I loved her. Of course, then she didn't become a nun. She got married and had 6 kids. Maybe that's why I loved her. I saw that open-mindedness. Everything else in my life, those people were nuts. I had an inner knowing. I knew how to fix my own dyslexia. I knew how to fix my focus. But yet that wasn't allowed. I couldn't hum. I couldn't even be really soft. I couldn't even tap my foot. Could not do anything that would bring my attention back to the present instead of where my mind would go, because that wasn't allowed. Because I had to trust the teacher. The teacher was right and I was wrong. If I talked about valuing all life, even that little fly that was driving the teacher crazy, I was wrong, she was right. As I got older, my parents, of course, were scared that I was turning into this flower child, kumbaya child. They had all these names. And so they started coming down on all this stuff. Everything I always did was wrong. I have to be very honest to you. So they came down on that, which then caused me to want to be independent, to get away from it. So I would stay away from home. But then everything was being taught to me, that everything about myself, the things that I valued and who I was, were wrong. Now, I am not telling you this as a sob story. How many of us out there, from the time we started in school, from the time we even could walk, were told we were wrong? How many times were we told that the teacher knew better, that your mom and dad always know better, that the whole world knows better, that the shop clerk knows better because you're just a child, that the priest knows better, that the pastor knows better, that the nun who doesn't even like children knows better? Do you see? And on top of that, we're also taught to value others over ourselves by that our actions are wrong. When we're on the playground, we're also taught to not trust who we are. And this begins a very funny thing in us. First of all, it causes confusion in adolescence. We wonder why kids in high school turn so crazy. Well, it's because they're kind of lost. They're supposed to be becoming these incredible human beings, but a lot of us just cramp them, are pushing them into mini me's. You know, I'm a doctor. We've been a doctor forever. We're going to be a doctor. Or we're slamming them that you can't do better than me. I've heard that so much in so many ways from some people. This life has already done all right for me, so this is where I'm shoving you into. Mini me's. They're finding that all of a sudden they're getting pushed out of places. You're older now, just go work. All of a sudden, they are thinking, wait a minute. What in the heck? What am I supposed to do? I don't even know who I am, right? And thus, now we have people that are very confused. And we're not giving them any lifeline. Or we have others that are so ingrained in one way of belief that they can't see who they are. And all these people grow up. We all grow up. And we don't know how to do our lives. We trust other people. I heard in some jobs, you have to get a job. You have to get a doctor's note if you're sick. Seriously? It's time for us to see that we are not children. And it's also time to say, hey, I am not just a drop in the water, which you will hear in spirituality all the time. You are a drop in the water. I don't tend to think that. I think if you are a drop in the water, you are a major change in the water. But how do we get from where they have put us, basically, to being awakened? Well, one way people have chosen is to create false belief. Like, I had a friend that just posted, we need our pride. Well, that's grasping at something still outside. Pride. It's based on something we believe in the outside world and something that somebody has told us we're good at. Pride. False perception and false, what do I call it all the time? False principles. Principles that don't even matter in the real scheme of things. However, we fight to the bone for them. Judgment. Judgment is just comparison. And it's a power play. We have to have something that we feel higher than, which is a false ego. That's how our ego forms. So this is one way, and that seems to be an extremely popular way that we choose to gain some kind of control in our life. Another one that I heard just last night from a client, well, actually, it was a person who commented on one of my posts that she was never going to accept all the stuff she went through. She is a survivor, and it hasn't made her. She picked herself up. Now, listen, I commend her for that. I commend her for that. But as she's telling this to me, she says she's getting all choked up. Well, she did such great work. But the thing is, the story still owns her. She hasn't learned the higher lesson of it. It doesn't make you, in a way. What it does is, if you look at the higher lesson of the trauma you went through, it's not because you have to do that, but it's a freeing. You understand the lesson of it, or you sometimes can't even make sense of it, but you know that it has given you strength, or it has given you conviction in yourself, or it has given you reason to spread the word, or it has given you something that if you were born with a beautiful golden spoon in your mouth, you would never have. And if we don't own the story, it becomes something that we are a victim to. That's why you have, I am a survivor. I am a fighter. I am this person who is a warrior who's always going to have a battle. And the focus becomes the battle. Again, a false thing. It's an illusion, folks. And I can say that because when you start to understand that we really are here on this earth to find our way through the lessons so that we evolve as spiritual beings. I wasn't born with a wonderful gold spoon in my mouth. Most of my life has been interesting. It has been a lot of different battles, a lot of controversy as far as from the school, from certain people who have blown my mind sky high. People that I thought were supporting me turned out to be doing exactly the opposite. So, no, I wasn't born with a wonderful little gold spoon that everything was just given to me wonderfully. But what I was given was an understanding that it didn't have to be that way. And that they may be that way, but that's not me. Do you see? That's not what I'm about. And it gave me the strength. Now, did I go up on a mountain and just meditate while all this was happening? No, I dealt with my situation. I dealt with it the way that it needed to be dealt with to get it to be solved in a way that was the best for everyone. And sometimes that took standing my ground and being very firm. Dealing with a bully when I was 10, I really did have to stand my ground. Or it is just saying, this is not worth my time. It's stepping back from wanting to control others, making them believe what I believe, and just knowing myself. And that gives me the higher, this is what I've worked with, that gives me the higher perception of how to deal with that situation for really the betterment of all, instead of me wanting to change their actions. That's the faults. Do you see? So let's take this in real time. You know, I always like to do that because concepts are hard to apply. So let's talk about that toxic relationship at work. Let's just use that as an example because that can be horrible. You are there for the majority of your day, right? Some of us even work overtime and we're still dealing with the problem. Oh my God, it turns into your life and it can eat at you. I've actually seen that kind of situation. I have seen workers suddenly get terrible diseases from living that kind. The stress and inflammation from the stress can cause everything. Did you know that inflammation caused with stress and the foods we eat can cause diabetes, heart failure, Alzheimer's, just to name a few. Autoimmune disease is a popular one. This is no joke. So how do we deal with this problem? Do we just fight back and lose our job? No. And that's what I work with people on, by the way, just to tell you. It takes a little bit, not much though. You're not in therapy for thousands of years. You learn how to tap into you first. And when you start to see that inner self and trust it and start to hear it through either how your stomach tightens or maybe that little thought that comes into your head, you start to trust who you are. You do the meditation. You do the things like stopping judging and labeling. Labeling that toxic person the devil would start a really good place. And then when you have to deal with that person, well, then you start to think to yourself the night before, how do I see myself dealing with this situation? How do I want to be in that situation? You start to take back your control. I actually worked with somebody like on this exact problem. And you know what ended up happening? With gentleness and with herself, she set up her own boundaries, not in a hateful way. And she actually changed the situation so that toxic person wasn't even there anymore. She started to give herself the power to be able to change the situation, not be a victim, not think that everybody knew better than her. But she did it in a way that is not confrontational. In fact, she did it with a lot of grace. She did it with kindness, but she also set her boundaries. And she learned this higher lesson about her own power, and that her power didn't come out of anger. It comes out of knowing how to set up the boundaries, not to alienate, but to state what she will take and what she won't. How do you do that? You have to tap in. Now, that sounds like a little thing, right? But it's not. Because once you get that first awareness, and when you first start to understand you look at yourself and say, wow, I'm on to something here. If I can change how I deal with things at work, and I change a toxic situation into one that I can really work with and feel good at work, or I change a toxic relationship in my marriage. Is it possible? Oh, yes, totally. What we have to understand is it starts with us. It doesn't start with somebody who is going to come in and save the day like Superman. It starts with us. We have to take back all the power that we have inside instead of giving it out to others to have over us by belief systems and everything else. We have to get over the fact that we can change others' actions or who other people are. There's a wonderful book out that shows the illusions of this world. Well, the illusions that were created. And it's called Illusions. And the last name is by Bach. And he also wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull. It was really big when I was a kid. And it's a really good book to show you how it's all about. I'll give you a little preface. It's about the Messiah comes down, and there's this guy who flies planes. He'll give you a ride for so much. He travels from town to town and gives you rides, right? Well, the Messiah comes down and sees that this guy is really on the cusp of realizing something great. So he becomes a pilot. I know, just go with me on this. And he starts to show the man, and thus the readers, how this life is truly an illusion. Isn't that cool? It's a really cool book. And if we think we can change another person's ideals and belief systems and control that person, then we are really living in an illusion. To think that we can take a person, we do it all the time. You know, a lot of our belief systems. Gosh, I remember, when I was growing up, if you weren't in my belief system as far as religion, well then, oh my God, you're going to hell. Well, who am I to know that? Seriously. And is there only my faith up there? My job up there? It's time to wake up from the illusion. So I'm going to give you some things to get started. Meditate. Yeah, start to meditate. If you need guided journeys, I've got a bunch on Alena Chapman YouTube. If you want to just get quiet and allow the blackness to come in and feel the love, that's a good way. But start to be with yourself. Start to put away the labels and judging. Be curious. Start to open and start to trust yourself more. Listen to yourself and say, I'm going to trust myself. And do the research. Start to question some of the beliefs that you have in any area of your life. And don't judge it right away. Just sit with it. It might ring true to you, it might not. But allow yourself to be curious enough to do the research. As always, guys, I'm all about that soul wisdom, that inner wisdom. That is your true self. And when you start to open to that wonderful source, God, divinity, whatever, comes into you and flows through you to create the ease and betterment. Check out TikTok, Alena Chapman. Check out YouTube, Alena Chapman. Have a beautiful week. I love you all.